Okay, I am going to make an actually short video going over everything that I have missed. This is my sixth time on this video, and I keep making it like way too long. So here's the deal: I have missed many videos. I'm actually a little bit confused and not sure where I've left off. I kind of went back on the last couple of videos. It seems like I've missed a couple. I may have actually recorded some and not uploaded them to my log of videos on YouTube. And I may have deleted them in not liking the way that they looked or worked. So I'm not super positive where I'm at in terms of recording stuff. So I'm going to kind of go over some repeated information throughout this one. I also want to try and go through as fast as possible so it's not super duper long. At the very end, I'll go over some of the things that I'm going to start trying to do, not only in future videos, but just what I'm working on next. But jumping right in, I'm going to, I'd also like to try and work on some video structure. So, doing that now, first is going to be what has changed. Then I'm going to go over the actual things that have changed and show them. Then kind of do in the future stuff. So, jumping right in, the first thing that has changed and what I've mostly been working on recently is art stuff. And I apologize for anyone listening to this. I actually have a cold. But so new start screen. So it's very similar to the previous one in that there is the eye, it's looking around, it looks around randomly, and then when you hit new game, the little flash of light comes up and there's an animation for that. This is actually an enemy that is going to be in the game, so I wanted to try and add that. This is not a final image of the main menu screen. This is kind of just something that I've been working on off and on as I've been working on art stuff. This is the most recent iteration, and I actually really like the structure of everything, so this is basically how it's going to look. Probably going to change things here and there. I'm going to definitely change some stuff about the eye and its placement and how it's looking around and some other stuff, but again, basically how it's going to look. Again, hitting this, it gives a little animation for the flash, and then it pops out. In here, I believe I have shown this, and a little side note is I have changed the fonts. This is going to be the main font that I use. I found this font that is more assuredly free and usable for commercial purposes. I'm going to double check with the person that made it at some point, but there is a note in where I found it from the person that made it that says that it is free for commercial use. So that's where I'm going with. All of the text pretty much everywhere has not been resized since I changed them. So I need to go through and do all of that. But in the screen is where you're choosing a race, and I'm almost positive I've gone through this, so I'm just going to jump through most of this stuff. You choose a race here, which affects your starting stats and your starting area for the game, which sort of affects the beginning of the story. And then you can choose a class after that. I've also been working on this musical intro. So it just repeats now, so I'll talk over it this time. This is just an intro. I am going to be adding more of an actual song after this intro plays. Little side note here, art in general takes me a very, very long time. I'm not very good at any art. This music isn't necessarily the greatest thing anyone is ever going to hear in their life. The art that I've just showed with the main menu and anything else that I've shown off so far isn't the best art ever. I think it's okay, but it does take me a very long time to even get to okay in any of those regards. So I did know that going into this project, and I know that it will continue to be that way as I go along. I don't have a lot of experience in any of these things, past this. So choose a class. I think I've gone over this before too, just so that the music isn't playing anymore. The art is slowing me down significantly, which unfortunately is also affecting my morale and my motivation. And I have been working less, which is not something I'm super excited about, but it just happens to be the case. So that's part of the reason that my videos have fallen significantly behind. I've also just had a bunch of adult stuff and out of work things that I've been trying to work on and get working and doing. I also unfortunately got sick for about 3 weeks or 2 weeks or something, and then got better for a week, and now I'm sick again. So I've been working much less than I should be for a while now, and I'm trying to get back in the swing of things, but especially this sickness has crippled me quite a bit. Anyway, that stuff out of the way, not super important. Also some more UI stuff that I've added in. I've changed the character menu buttons here, so these are also not final. I'm going to be adding some stuff to this. I will detail that in a future video so that I can keep this fairly short. But as you can see, I've added different icons for all the things. Hovering over any of them shows you which screen you're going to be going to. This is the talents map, forge, inventory, and stats, and then system over here. Clicking on this has the buttons as it used to be, so you can go into the submenus for the inventory and crafting. I have also been trying to work on feedback to the user so that things that you're doing are much more obvious, because I do really want to work on that, and I think it's a really important thing to keep in mind for everything that I design. There's another instance of this that I'll show in a second that I changed for that purpose. So the example I'm talking about is having these buttons expand when you roll over them. They also show you which screen you're going to be going in over here, so that you know what all the buttons actually do finally. And just kind of that user feedback sort of thing with these buttons expanding. So going into the spells is the next thing that I can show off for UI changes. I've added these borders for all of the separate information area over here. The equip skill thing is standing out pretty obviously. I'm going to try and figure out a new place for this because I don't want it there. The background here is somewhat what it's going to be. I'm going to try and round the edges a little bit so that it looks a little bit more kind of akin to these borders on all of the information and the buttons here. The other big thing that changed is, and this is that other feedback thing, so instead of having names over here on these buttons, also the obvious thing is the spell book here. So this is another art piece that I've been working on. Needs work itself, but this is the general idea that I was kind of shooting for. It's not perfect, and I'm gonna have to fiddle around with some things involving it, but this little page turn here is to remind me that I need to animate this. The idea is that whenever you click on one of the buttons up here to go to a different spell set, it flips the page and goes back and forth, which is probably going to be quite a challenge actually because of the way that Unity sets up grid layouts. These buttons are in a grid layout, so it kind of numbers them weird. And I'm going to have to, as the page is flipping, I'm going to have to like disable the buttons or not show them, and hopefully that won't affect the grid layout, but I think it will. So it might be kind of complicated to make this work properly, but yeah, so I'm going to try and animate it so that it flips the pages and stuff. Also, so the feedback thing that I was trying to talk about is that I changed the text. Instead of having text here for all of the spells, it's just images. Whatever the actual sprites are for the spell is what I wanted to put here because I think it's easier to remember or know what an icon is showing you rather than to try and read through a ton of different text, especially because these are pretty small, so actually fitting the text in all of them is really difficult. So all the information can be over here. The quick glance kind of thing is in the spell book, which is kind of where our eye gets drawn to in the screen. And then just some updates. I think this was in the previous video, but if I cast a spell, this fireball in particular, it tells me that I am going to unlock an air version of the spell. So I updated the little icon here to be a little bit crisper and more flowy with the animation, and then changed the progress bar here to be a little bit more readable by making it a little bit bigger. So still just tells you what's happening. I haven't added a lot of stuff here. But continuing to go through that, I would just update the spell and actually be able to be unlocked. There's also been, so I had some new icons for the forging stuff, the crafting and deconstruction. These screens are exactly the same. I haven't added anything yet. So a little fun fact, these are all white in the backgrounds because I was originally going to have that main menu screen as the background for all of these menus, but it ended up being really cluttered and hard to tell what was going on, so I changed that to be the main menu, and then the spell is going to be, there's a bug here, the screens aren't closing and opening properly, but so this is going to be the background instead now. It makes it much more readable for the stuff in the all the text and stuff. Anyway, the other UI thing that I did, and I think I may have actually had, and may or may not have mentioned in previous videos, the backgrounds here were actually, I didn't properly get the dimensions of the screen that it like kind of needed to be at, and was kind of just making them when I first made these. So they ended up actually being a little bit stretched when I first placed them in, so I redid them so that they aren't stretched anymore. Sorry for the pause there, I had a little coughing fit. So I just scaled them so they aren't stretched anymore. They look much crisper and cleaner now. So that's the stuff that I've added that I've been working on. Again, this is art is not something I am very proficient at or efficient at. So it does take me a long time, and it has been a little demoralizing and frustrating trying to get this stuff working and looking nice, which kind of knew was going to be the case. I've already mentioned that, but anyway, trying to work on that. So in terms of what's happening going forward, I'd like to try and get all of the UI stuff at least more defined. So making sure all of those backgrounds are in, all of the general idea of how stuff is going to look in, the kind of color schemes that I want for each individual menu, if there are different color schemes, which there probably won't be. They're all going to be fairly uniform. The differences that I want in the menus are actually kind of the structure of them. So like the armor here has a really specific look to it. It has these blocks with the armor all in these buttons up at the top. The weapons, which is actually I'm going to change, will have its own specific kind of look to it. The spells has its own specific look to it, and the items have their own specific look to it. So they're all going to have the same color scheme, probably. They just look different, so you know more or less immediately which screen you're in based on how it looks. Even if they all look color-wise fairly similar. The other big thing I need to work on is in terms of figuring out stuff. This screen is, I'd say, effective at getting all the information across, but I'm not sure I super like it. I may change things with this. I may not. I don't know. Anyway, kind of going off on a tangent there. So going forward, I'd like to try and get all the UI stuff done, or a vast majority of the basics of it done, so that I know what I'm going to have the framework of for all of them going forward. Then after that, I'm going to start working on player animations. I wanted to work on player animations before any of that stuff, but my girlfriend actually pointed out a very, very important thing of I need to know color schemes. I need to know like fidelity of pixels, how things are sort of going to kind of look, so that I can actually know what the character looks like or how they're going to look. Because if the UI all looks like this and then the character looks like that, it looks really freaking weird, especially with backgrounds like this. So I'm kind of building up a way of how everything looks. And then I'm going to try and work on something that's really important, which is the character animations, which are probably going to take me a very significant amount of time to get working properly and looking right. So yeah, that's for the future stuff. And then we're going to go from there. My brain is complete mush because of this cold, and I'm still not getting over it quite yet. But I think I covered everything I wanted to. I'm going to try and work much harder on having a more consistent video schedules again. I'm also obviously working on a more consistent working schedule so that things aren't wildly all over the place. Things are starting to settle down a bit more outside of work, so hopefully things will be more consistent. I also want to try and work on a more consistent video format within each video. Eventually, something I'd like to have done is actually kind of adding some overlays to the videos and like sections to them, so that it's easier to like skip around, so that first of all, so that they aren't super long, that I can get the points across really quick. That probably won't be right away, because I do need some video formatting software, and I don't have any right now, and I don't really want to spend the money unless I'm ready to start doing that. So anyway, that's the future stuff. I'm gonna try and cut it here. I probably missed stuff. If I did, I'll try and get it in the next video. Actually, last thing, all that said, I am probably not going to have a video as consistent for this month because of Christmas and everything that's going on with that. Traveling all over the place here and there. So, by January, I'm going to have a much more set schedule, I think. I'm going to be working more properly, let's call it. So, yeah, getting back into the flow of things more properly. Okay, now I'm going to cut it. I'll have a video at some point, and then I'll go into more detail in that one.